Let's see if this recording thing works. It says it's recording. Who knows? Keep our fingers crossed. Robotics Education and Competition Foundation. Competitions. Love competitions. Every day is fun. All right. STEM in a new era. I'm playing with stuff. I'm going to stand up because I really can't stand sitting down. Just sit up. So yes, I'm in my travel trailer. This is my home office. In a family of 6. Who am I? Michael Thompson. I don't know where I'm. It's a mess today. It's okay. STEM in a new era. Is this really a new era? We're doing a pandemic. You guys are here because you want some ideas, I'm sure. Figure out what's going on, how to connect with those kids in this strange, strange time that we're dealing with. So Mesa Worlds, Rialto High School. I'm from Rialto High School. Looking through the agenda, I saw that there weren't too many teachers presenting here. I am a teacher, teaching today, and now here I am presenting. So at Rialto High School, I have a little land all to myself. Well, not anymore. I have another teacher that I share it with now. It's called Mesa World. Mesa is the class that I teach, Math, Engineering, Science Achievement, hosted by UC Riverside. Great program. I love it. Been doing it for 15 years now. And my last principal that we had said that I needed more space to work with. So they gave us the portables. My kids made some gates. We set that up. It's been fun. So a little bit about me. Who am I? I'm just a teacher. That's all I am. Just a regular old teacher trying to get through this crazy world. My background is not in science or engineering, strangely enough. I went to college and earned degrees in business administration and economics. Spent some time in private industry, trying to make it, figuring out what I wanted to do. Thought I wanted to start my own business. So eventually realized, it's too much of the same stuff day in and day out. I needed some variety. So I went back to school for engineering, mechanical engineering, big transition. Met my wife in that time. We started dating, and then we got married during that time too. Lucky us. And then decided engineering, I don't know, there's a lot of work. My wife got pregnant. I needed a full-time job. So my wife was becoming a teacher, and thought that was a good opportunity. The physics classes I took in college, actually enjoyed those, and I thought, hey, maybe I could teach physics in high school. So I switched careers again and got into teaching. 16 years later, here I am teaching science and engineering with a business and econ degree. Life's crazy like that. There's my happy little family right there. My wife, she is also a teacher. She's currently teaching 5th grade. She's sitting next to me on the trailer, listening, waiting for student support time. And those are my 4 beautiful kids. That's a little bit about me. So, what are we doing here? We're in this conference. We're in this pandemic. We're all doing this crazy distance learning stuff. And we're all excited about STEM. We all love doing that hands-on activities, getting the kids engaged, building things, going to competitions. That's what we want to do. But then everything came to a halt when the pandemic started, and we couldn't do that hands-on. So it's a problem. Engineering design process, that's what it is. It's all about problems. STEM is all about problems, figuring out what that problem is and coming up with solutions. So for my presentation today, I'm just here to share my experiences with STEM, how I've adapted to this pandemic, what activities I've engaged my students in to try and keep it as normal as I can with my students and to keep it moving forward and keep it as hands-on as possible. I'm not an expert in this. I'm not going to claim to be an expert. I'm just a regular old teacher trying to make it through this world. And so I have a question up there in there as well for all of you guys to share. If you are teachers doing STEM activities in your classes, I would love to hear what you guys are doing as well. So feel free to answer that anytime, just so I can get some ideas too, because I'm always looking for new ideas, expanding our program, doing different things. So the problem we have is, how do we keep doing STEM in our classes when our kids are at home, we're at school? How do we get them supplies to build projects? Normally we provide that stuff in our classroom or try to get it in our classroom. We can watch them building things, help them with that, and encourage them. But distance learning, We can't always see them. It makes it a lot harder. So it's troubling. So what I've done, I've tried to keep it as normal as possible. Nearpod is a great app. I like simplicity too. I don't want to make it overly complicated. My district keeps buying all these different apps, all this different software, trying to make it easier for teachers to do distance learning, giving us different options to be able to do distance learning. But really, it's just more time in front of the computer, staring at this tiny little screen, making our eyesight go bad, giving us headaches, driving us nuts. And even as teachers, it's just exhausting. So it's a few hours a day that we're staring at the computer screen. It's terrible. And then we have to grade all those assignments. It's terrible. So my goal with my STEM program is to get the kids off the computer as much as possible. Nearpod, I know it's on the computer. It is on the computer, but it gives me the opportunity to get them off the screen as well, because I engage in some hands-on activities with them. And this is how I started the year. Nearpod is fully integrated with Google Slides, and it's a great program. It's similar to Pear Deck, if you've used that. So it works in a very similar way. It just has a lot of options for interaction, sort of forced interaction on the students. You can see who's participating, who's not participating, and you get instant feedback on the learning. And it's all set up through that. And this is one that I've set up. This one's called Day 2 Challenges. I have a Day 1 challenge and a Day 2 challenge. And what is it? I normally start out my school year with hands-on challenges, simple challenges in the classroom that just take up the class period, an hour, building towers, building bridges, things like that. So when I started the school year, I had to try and figure out, what are they going to do now? How are they going to do stuff? And decided just to keep it simple. They're at home. They should have stuff. I looked around my house. There's lots of stuff sitting around. So I sent them on a scavenger hunt. The first day we had to do the syllabus, of course. So the second day, even though I call it Day 1 challenges, this is what I had them do. And if you guys had your cameras on, I'd make you do this too. But in the interest of time, maybe we can do this at the end. I gave them a scavenger hunt. Did this through Nearpod, gave them all these items, told them, you got 5 minutes, go run around your house, try and collect as many of these items as you can. They may not have all these items, and that's okay, but they should have. I gave them a big enough list of items so they should be able to find most of the stuff. And I didn't expect them to find all the stuff, and they had no idea what they were going to do with the stuff. And that's okay too, because really we just want to have fun with the kids and get them engaged and get them off the computer. So what did I have them do after this? They did a scavenger hunt, had them build a tower. This is just one little challenge. They didn't use all the stuff because that stuff's going to come later. So these are the basic directions that I gave them. Built the tallest freestanding tower using only those materials, and it had to hold a pair of socks. Everyone should have a pair of socks. Now the fun part of this is I never said what size socks they could have had or could have used. So if they have a little baby in the house, they could have little tiny baby socks. Will I be sharing this? Absolutely. If you guys go up to where the chat is, there's the handouts tab. The handouts tab has a link. It says StepCon resources. If you download that, that'll take you directly to my Google Drive. And it has this presentation in there, and it has a whole bunch of other resources in there as well. And I'll be going over those in a little bit too. So this whole presentation will have it. This Day 1 challenge that I'm presenting to you doesn't have all the slides in it. I didn't put it in this presentation because you don't need to see all of it. It has a lot more slides, a lot more interaction to it. I'm just showing you some of the highlights of it. So yeah, so I love it. I do the scavenger hunt with them, and then they do a challenge, give them 10 minutes to build it. They get extra credit if they have one that succeeds. Keep track of that. I think I forgot to keep track of it, so no one really got extra credit, but you know, they don't know otherwise. They'll figure it out later. So then I have them turn on the cameras. I work in a district where they aren't required to turn on their cameras, and it's a little bit frustrating because we do Google Meets, we can't even use Zoom. So we're stuck staring at a computer screen full of letters because the kids don't want to turn on their cameras, of course. So it's hard to see what they're doing or if they're engaged. So Nearpod is a way that helps me make sure that they know that they're engaged. But I did have the kids turn on their cameras for the testing of the towers, and most of them were pretty willing to do that, so it was nice. So we got to see their towers holding up their socks. They were pretty creative. A lot of the towers were a little bit short ones, but Most of them were all right. And then I asked them questions, got them involved, figured out how they can make a difference, asked them if materials make a difference. Nearpod has these collaborate boards, so I asked them what are some of the features. If they looked at the other towers that the students made, what were some of those features that were successful? And they can type into that. Everyone can see the responses. And then threw in a snack break just for fun, because I think one of the items I had them look for was water and some food. So they had some sort of snack in there. And then we moved on to the next challenge. So this challenge that I was doing was actually done all in one class period. Our class period, our block periods are about 75 minutes long. So I was able to do all this. My wife stole this idea. She teaches 5th grade. And I think she only did part of it, which is fine. I think she broke it up into a couple of days. Because her science sessions are a little bit shorter. So she broke it up a little bit. And then she decided to share this with her whole 5th grade team and the 4th grade team at her school. And they all did these activities too. So the second challenge, this is where they got to use all the rest of the materials that I had them gather. And they do what I like to call Adventure's Corner. So normally when I'm in my classroom, I just take whatever extra supplies I have in my classroom, paper plates, napkins, straws, toothpicks, paper clips, whatever I can find in the classroom, and have them take it and invent something. Whatever they want to come up with, games, things like that. They can come up with games, spaceships. They come up with some very bizarre stuff, and then I'll usually have them present it. So this one, I gave them 20 minutes to use the rest of their stuff. I let them, I said they could have their family help out with them if they wanted to, but they're high school kids, of course, no, it's not going to happen. But they came up with some pretty good stuff. I think I had the pictures. And then I assigned them a flip grade so they could record a short little video. So in lieu of a presentation in front of the whole class, they just recorded the flip grid video. And then I opened it up later on so that the kids could watch the videos themselves, like each one, and then whoever got the most likes on their videos, I gave them some extra credit. So some of the projects they came up with, these are 3 of the ones that they created. The one on the right, they made some weird little person creature thing. I don't even know how to describe that, but you can see it's just stuff they found around their house. These are just screenshots I took from their Flipgrid videos. This person in the middle made a little game out of the spoon and the straws, like the little football kicking games, paper games. And then the one on the left, they made a pencil holder and a drink holder. During their video, they actually filled up the cup with water and drank from it. And then they have a little paper clip tray on the top, and it's in their socks. So hopefully they're clean socks. Otherwise, that's not going to smell very good. And then, of course, they got to clean up their mess. And the next day, another challenge that they did, I used Nearpod again, but I did it rather than having them look for everything all at once. I decided to have them look for individual things, because then it gave me an opportunity for them to ask them to be more creative. And by that, I had them an open-ended question. They found their cereal box, they turned on their camera, showed it to me, wrote down their name so they can get some extra credit. Not really. And then asked them what they could do with their cereal box, because obviously in STEM, we need to be resourceful. And if they're going to be doing distance learning, they need to be extra resourceful, finding materials around the house to use for their projects. So they need to be able to think outside of the box, outside of the cereal box, and figure out different ways to do things. A pencil, the colored pencil, those smooth round ones could be used for, an axle on a car. They could be used for a stand to make a 2-story building. They could be used for a rod to make a windmill. You can use a paper plate for that. So that's what I had them do with the cereal boxes. They all wrote in their answers. Found a comb. So I actually had them find, I think it was about 8 or 10 different items. The day 2 challenges, the slides are also in that folder that I shared with you. So they'd find an item, they'd have a little challenge to do. For this one, I did it as a draw it. So in Nearpod, you can take an image on there, and then they have to turn it into a drawing, draw all over it using if they have a touch screen, they can use their finger on the screen. Otherwise, it gets a little bit more challenging using the mice. But a couple images my students came up with a zebra, colored it in. I think this one on the left is a play set. I'm not so sure, but we'll call it a play set. Seems to be a little kid down there, I hope. But they drew some other things. They had some dragons in there, and usual assortment of bizarre comb-shaped animals. But it was fun. The kids enjoyed doing it, and I think participation was pretty good for the most part for my students. But the activity is nice because it gets them off the computer just for a couple of minutes, running around, getting some exercise. Lord knows we all need some exercise during this quarantine stuff. It's having all that food close by is not good. And then of course working their snack breaks and their drink breaks, just having fun. And then what could it be? Again, more slides in there, things for them to do. So after I had them collect this random assortment of stuff, 8 to 10 different items, again, I gave them another challenge. And for this one, if you can read it, they had a cereal box, toothbrush, comb, shampoo, ruler, ball, cup, string, nail skewer, and 4 books. They had to figure out how to create a chain reaction type device out of those items. And I presented it as a draw it. So they had to think about all these items, try to piece it all together, and then draw an image of what they could create with those different items. They didn't realize they were making a Rube Goldberg device. They didn't know what it was called. Most of them didn't anyway. But it just got them thinking about how to use these different projects, what they can do with it, and how they can make it. So then I gave them a few minutes to sketch out their design, and then they actually had to build it and test it. So I gave them, I think, 15, 20 minutes to try and build their projects exactly like they build it and make it work. And then also gave them time to make modifications until it did work. And then again, came back, addressed the question, did it work? Why didn't it work? What do you think made it successful? What wasn't successful? How could you make it better? Again, asking those STEM questions, reviewing with them, getting them involved. And then presented what a Rube Goldberg device is. And actually in the slides, there's a video of a Rube Goldberg device. The video is about, I think, 4 or 5 minutes long. It shows some super complicated one, but it's fun. But then told them about the competition as well. Since I teach an engineering class, we like to participate in a lot of competitions. And I've done the National Rube Goldberg competition. In fact, last year even hosted a Rube Goldberg competition at our school. Lots of fun. We were supposed to go to nationals, but then COVID happened and we never got to go. But these are, the kids just built these little Rube Goldberg devices out of a random assortment of stuff from their house, but they have the chance to build a big giant one that takes up a lot of space. Their competition this year for Rube Goldberg is to shake and pour a box of nerds. Sounds like an easy task, but really making these devices is troubling. But RubeGoldberg.com is the website if you want more information on that competition. It is a lot of fun. It does cost money though, so you got to think about that. And they got to build it at home. So getting a team together is going to be a little bit more challenging. The other option is Minecraft Rube Goldberg, if you weren't aware. We do esports at our school as well, and we're part of the North American Scholastic Esports Federation, and they have partnered with Rube Goldberg this year to create a Minecraft Rube Goldberg competition. So the students get to work on the computer. I know we're trying to get away from the computer, but sometimes you have to use it anyway. So the students can work in groups to actually create a Minecraft world that demonstrates a Rube Goldberg device. And the task hasn't been released yet. They're still in the initial stages. They have some mini challenges that they're doing. And I have a team that's doing that right now. So they're excited because their class project right now, every day they come to class, is just to play on Minecraft and build a world. And who wouldn't love that? I'm still trying to get a team together for the big Rube Goldberg competition. No takers yet. But then this is just this other slide on here. I know you can't see most of it. I apologize for that. Is another draw it. I like to do this one each year. Normally I pass it out on paper and for my students to draw on, but it's the start of several images, and it's just thinking outside of the box and to see if they can think outside of the box and create images outside of the box. Anyway, so a little bit bigger. So that's how I start my year. Always start small, get them engaged. It's like a good sales pitch. You got to get that hook, get them into the STEM program, get them excited about it, and then you can do whatever you want. Not really, but what I turned to next was water bottle rockets. So I got a little bit bigger. I figured a lot of people are using 2-liter bottles, drinking soda at home. Maybe not. They might not be. So I gave them different options. They were going to build a rocket. They could either build a 2-liter water bottle rocket, or they could build a paper rocket that fits on a PVC pipe. So the picture that you see in the middle, surprisingly, is all the rockets that got turned in. So when I talk about creativity, drive-through testing, if you're looking through that slide, I wanted to do the rockets. I wanted to keep the kids hand-on, but I had to think of a different way, different approach to doing it. Obviously, our schools were closed down. We can't have the schools in there doing launches. You're thinking, why would you even think of doing rocket launches or building rockets if you can't get onto campus? Well, the students can't get onto campus, but the teachers can. And I have a water bottle rocket launcher at school. So thinking outside of the box, I thought, why not have a rocket launch? We can still do it. The kids can build their rockets at home. They can get a 2-liter bottle. If they can't do a 2-liter bottle, then I can buy a 2-liter bottle and do like a grab and go, pass off a 2-liter bottle. Or they can make a paper rocket. And we can still test it. How do we test it? Drive-through testing. Just like graduation in the spring. Kids driving up to the curb, kids get out, they do their graduation ceremony, they get back in the car and move on. So I thought, why not do that with the rockets? Of course, I decided to pick the hottest days of the year to go to this. Wasn't part of my plan. It just happened to work out that way. But unfortunately, our district was also struck with malware. I don't know if you've heard about that. Rialto Unified School District shut down for about 4 weeks, which was good fun. And I had originally scheduled our rocket launches during that time. And I thought because our schools were shut down, our distance learning was shut down, I wouldn't be able to do it. But my principal was like, why not? So I scheduled it anyway. So even though the kids weren't able to do any other classwork, they could still build their rockets. They could still engage in STEM. They could still be involved. And the best part about the drive-through, the parents still get to see it. So if you look at the pictures in the background, on the bottom right, or in the middle right on the picture is blue Easy Up. That's our Easy Up for my class. I had one of our counselors help me out with this. So families would drive up along the curb. I set up in the football field closest to the street, or on the track. On track, football field, it's all the same thing. So the parents would drive up. They'd check in with the counselor right there, everyone wearing their masks, of course. We'd pass the rocket over the fence. I would get a lot of exercise that day, running back and forth, setting up the rockets, launching them. Those are actual pictures from 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, whenever I did it. Early August, mid-August, late August, I don't know. Whenever I did it. I did it though. So I scheduled a day. I had to work it out with my principal. The arrangements we made, if you're planning on doing this or would like to do this, because of the sanitation guidelines, I had to pick up the rockets 2 days before. That way they can sit untouched, let the virus die for 2 days, and then I could host the rocket launch. So that's what I did. I collected them on a Friday. I went to school, collected them on a Friday, put them in a bin. Well, actually, I took them over in my classroom and set them up on the table. So that's the inside of my classroom, laid out all the rockets, let them sit there for 2 or 3 days. They sat there for the weekend. And then the following Tuesday, went back to school. That's when our school had shut down. So I was able to do it in the morning and arranged there for my kids to drive up. They told me their number. I had them all number their rockets. Then I can go grab their rockets, set it up on the launcher, launch it, tell them how high it went, and then they got to drive away. Got the parents involved. They got to see the rockets. And I know a lot of them were helping with the rockets because then as they were driving away, they were like, see, we should have built smaller fins on there. We should have added more weight. Should have flown better. And besides the one that blew up on me, it all went pretty well. And I have, in my MESA classes, I teach 3 different MESA sections. I have about 100 students. I think I counted a little over 60 rockets. So considering we were shut down doing distance learning, to have 2/3 of the kids come to school and drop off a rocket for me to launch, for me, that's a big win. That was pretty amazing. I was super excited about that. So then after we launched it, I passed off the rockets back to the kids. I let them take it back, modify it, because that's part of the engineering design process. And then the following week, I redid it all over again. They had to drop them off on a Friday, launched again on a Tuesday, so that they can get some comparison data on improvements on the rockets. And actually, surprisingly, most of the rockets did quite a bit better. The highest rocket I had that day went about 185 feet, so it was pretty good. But drive-through project testing, it worked for the rockets. For a lot of the other projects that we do in my class, I'm planning on doing the same thing too. Probably a bigger drive-through event. Haven't finished planning it out, but looking towards that. So where are we at now? Here we are, third month of school. For us, really, it's like the second month of school because we missed a month of school. And we're trying to get back to normal. So normally the way I run my classroom, my STEM classroom, Mesa classroom, is they have a project, different project each month. Before I go too far, how do you measure the height? Good question. Two different ways. You can use the angle finder and have someone measure it, but I was working by myself, so I couldn't do that. So I actually had a digital altimeter that attaches to the rocket. It's called the Altimeter 3, and I was able to get a grant from Toshiba to be able to purchase them. They're kind of pricey. They have 3 different versions. There's the Altimeter 1, Altimeter 2, and Altimeter 3. The Altimeter 3 is the fanciest one. It costs about $100, and it has the full GPS, Bluetooth connectivity, so it connects to an app on your phone. And you just start the recording, attach it to the rocket. Well, you attach it to the rocket, start the recording, and then when it launches, it collects all the height data. It's an amazing tool. The amount of data that it collects from that one flight is just phenomenal. So if you're a high school teacher, it's great because it records, well, I guess any grade would work out too. It records the acceleration, average velocity, maximum height, the G-forces. If you have a parachute involved, it measures the parachute deployment time, the fall rate, and the impact speed with the ground. It gives all that data in that very short 5 to 6 second flight. Altimeter 3 is the name of it. So they are fun. They were a little bit glitchy because I was launching rockets. They weren't using parachutes. I kind of hit hard, but I think I figured out why they were giving some skewed data. But the owner of the company was super responsive. I emailed him a few times when I was doing the launches, and he would reply back within an hour, and it's been trying to do updates with it. But I'll put another link to that in the folder, the Google Drive folder later on today, so you can look that up as well. So back to the projects as well, trying to keep everything normal. I like to keep everything normal. We want our kids to maintain some normalcy as well. So I didn't want to change my curriculum too much. We shouldn't have to think too far out from what we normally do. All these apps, all these virtual programs that are offered nowadays, you know, as soon as the distance learning started, every company was coming out with ways to do everything virtually. And still, it's just kids staring at a computer screen all day long, ruining their eyes and getting headaches and getting bigger. So we needed to get them up and get them more active. So my wife's laughing at me. I apologize. It is, but it has that same problem. So in my classes, they normally do a different project a month. And in the Mesa program, we have competitions we do. So they have those projects to choose from. And most of them take about a month to do. They spend 1 week planning it out, writing journal entries, doing the blueprints for it, doing the research for it. And then they do the next 3 weeks are building, testing, modifying, all that kind of stuff. And I wanted them to do the same thing. And after seeing what they could do with the rockets, I knew my class was essentially going to be the same. The only modifications I had to make to doing my STEM classes, my Mesa classes, was supplies and how to test the projects. And after doing the drive-through testing with the rockets, I knew that was definitely a possibility. I can test their projects now. I can schedule a time at the end of the month when their projects are done, or if I'm doing a family event, I can schedule that time where they can come through, we can test it out. It's going to take a lot of time on my part, a lot of effort with the logistics, but it's possible to keep them engaged and keep them active. And then the supplies were the other issue as well. Normally I have a classroom full of supplies, the balsa wood, the rubber bands, the plane kits, things like that. And so how was I going to get those supplies to them? And my solution was the same thing as the drop and go projects, was the grab and go supplies. So if I time it right, I can collect projects, give them supplies at the same time. Of course, that never works out right. So of course I had to schedule another day to go to school, get the supplies together, bag them up, and then sit outside in the excruciating heat waiting for students to come up to pick up supplies. So part of the planning phase of their projects is they just started working on projects for this month. One of the assignments that I gave them was a form to fill out to request supplies, so like a shopping list. I told them that I could try and get them supplies. I'll see what supplies I have in my classroom, and then see what supplies I can buy at the store. So I have kids working on marble roller coasters. They're working on mousetrap cars. They're working on planes. They're working on a variety of things right now. And a lot of those supplies I did have to spend a little bit of my own money to buy pool noodles and PVC for the marble roller coasters, but it ended up only being about $40 worth of supplies, which really wasn't too bad. Not as bad as it could have been. So I know one of the questions, I think I saw one of the questions on there, how do you get supplies to these kids? How do they do STEM without supplies? And of my 100 kids, I think only about 20 of them actually asked for supplies. When I started asking other students about them, their parents were taking them to the store to buy supplies. Some of them hadn't gotten supplies yet because either they were too embarrassed to ask for supplies or couldn't make it to school to get them. So for the time being, I'm telling them that they can just use whatever materials they have to make a model of that project. So it may not be a functioning model, may not be a functioning project, but at least they can build something that looks like the blueprints that they did, so they can do some comparison that way. I'm scheduling another grab and go for them next week so that they can get some more supplies and hopefully get out to those other kids. So that's how I'm making the STEM work at my class. It is taking a lot of work trying to schedule those times to get into school, working out with the kids. I did have this one nice grandmother who offered to deliver supplies to students' houses if I needed help. So I really appreciated that, and I may take her up on that this time around. So as far as STEM goes in my classroom, really hasn't changed very much other than getting the projects and then getting supplies. So engineering journals, I still do the engineering journals with them. They just do it digitally. I have them think about the problems, what they're trying to figure out, what they're trying to accomplish, whatever they are, explore it, come up with a design, and then I'm still keep on building. So this picture on the top right, this house, this was actually done probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I had a student build that house out of popsicle sticks, all out of popsicle sticks. The inside's all decorated too, the furniture. So students can still do this. If they would ask for a whole bunch of popsicle sticks, I've got a bunch of popsicle sticks. But I still have them building. They're still accomplishing things. And as far as checking for assignments and progress, this is probably been my most frustrating part of teaching through distance learning, is that since in our district they don't have to have their cameras on, I can't actually see what they're doing during class. So I created a simple assignment for them. It's just a Google slide. I call it a checkpoint. I know there's other teachers that may use Padlet, they may use other forms of checking, or they may force their students to turn on their cameras so they can actually see what they're doing. But since we can't force our kids to turn on their cameras, I can ask, but most of them won't do it anyway. It's okay, because I figured out, even though they aren't turning on their cameras, they are actually working, because most of the kids are turning in this assignment, showing me what they're doing. It's just one Google slide, and I put that slide in the folder as well. It just asks them what they accomplished for the day, brief description of it, how much time they spent working on it, and surprisingly, most of them are honest. They're like, I worked on it for about 15 minutes, and then I worked on other classwork. I'm like, okay, thanks for that honesty. Appreciate that. But it's okay. At least they're trying to get their work done as best they can. I know a lot of them don't have materials, so they're making do with what they have. So this student working on a prosthetic arm, they've got their materials laid out. I think they're on their second version already. Another kid working on a plane kit. I had these plane kits, balsa wood plane kits. I offered this during the grab and go, so the student actually came and picked one up, and he's making progress on it. Thank you for that. So they're working on it, and I can see that they're working on it. And even though they're not turning on their cameras during class, I can see that they're working on it. And even during my Google Meets, the sessions are much like it is in class. I don't stand there and lecture the entire time. I have my camera on. They're watching me. We're having a little side conversation in the chat, but I really don't know what they're working on. But these checkpoints allow me to see it and know that they are getting stuff done. So my students are building roller coasters. This is the marble roller coaster that they're building in their room. They have a competition coming up for Mesa by the end of this month. And they're doing it. They're getting it done. It is hands-on. Haven't gotten to that slide yet. My wife's trying to keep me on track. Oh, we're running out of time. 20 minutes. Talk a lot. Yeah. So again, yeah, I'm trying to get the kids off the computer. So I'm finding that during the meet, sometimes I'll ask them questions and I'm not getting any response. And I'm realizing it's because the kids are actually working. They may not be working in that room, or they may not be working close to their computer, so they can't unmute very fast, or they can't type into the chat very fast. But they are working. They're building the mousetrap cars. They're going into the hallway to test them out. They're going outside to test them out. They have their planes. This picture is a kid that, you know, like it says, he didn't have his supplies yet. He hasn't gotten his supplies. So he's just finding materials, cardboard boxes from around his house, just getting the basic layout, the shape of his project, so that they can get their project going. So he can get his project going once they do get the materials. So my future plans, obviously we're just in October. Again, I'm trying to get through this whole distance learning thing, making it through. I do plan future STEM nights. Our Mesa program, I had a mentoring program that my students started a couple of years ago, where we get involved with middle school and elementary school STEM nights. And we were so involved with that, we would go to maybe 10 or 12 different elementary and middle schools throughout the school year, providing activities for their STEM nights, having volunteers to help out with the activities that they have planned. And we kept pretty busy. I got a grant from Toshiba to make that mentoring program bigger. And it allowed me to buy a whole bunch of fun and fancy stuff that we can bring to these STEM nights. And unfortunately, because of COVID and all this cleansing stuff, kind of killed that. I still have all the stuff, which is nice. I'm going to get into that in a minute, show you all the goodies that I was able to buy. But I'm hoping to still have those STEM nights. If we can't do it at the middle schools and elementary schools, I'm hoping to have it at our school. Even at our own school, we had hosted an event called MesaCon. We held it 3 times a year, 2 or 3 times a year, and we would invite all my students' parents to school. We would have mini competitions. We would have a maker space set up. We'd have different games and activities going. It lasted about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, but the parents got to see what the kids were working on. So I'm hoping that I could do like a drive-through STEM night similar to that, set up our student parking lot where they can go through different stations, just driving through, testing out the different projects. And so the parents can also, again, see what they're doing. Well, actually, the parents can see a lot of what they're doing now because they're building everything at home. But I guess it's an opportunity for the kids to kind of see each other from a distance, of course, and experience what those competitions are like and to get back into school. Recycle bin is great. Egg cartons, I used to do the egg drop too. It got too messy, I stopped doing that. So yes, there are a lot of things. My kids are looking for wheels for mousetrap cars. They tell them to go steal the peanut butter jar lids and just replace it with some plastic wrap. Don't tell the parents because they'll probably say no. But yeah, there's a lot of materials that they can find. And those challenges, those initial challenges that I do, part of the reason why I do those is just so that they can see that there's a lot of materials around them that they can use for their projects. They just have to be a little bit more creative. And to that end, I was thinking about different things to do. Thank you for that. A pool noodle. Random idea that I came up with. My kids are building, students are building the marble roller coasters. I raided the dollar store down the street from my house. They had about 40 pool noodles left, so I just bought the whole box because I needed pool noodles. And I thought, what else could you do with a pool noodle? When I was looking at the attendees list earlier this week, I saw that there's a lot of elementary school teachers, and typically the ones that show up to these, and that's great. So they need a lot of different ideas. My wife is an elementary school teacher too, so she steals a lot of my ideas and uses them in her classroom. It's good. She started a whole STEM program because I had a STEM program. She won't admit that though. So I decided a pool noodle is cheap. You can go down to the dollar store. These only cost $1. What can you do with them? You can do so much. So At first, I just started thinking about the engineering. They're doing a marble roller coaster. But then what else can you do with it? I think someone's trying to come in. How does it relate to the other subjects? How do you make it more cross-curricular? When I started thinking, a roller coaster is kind of like the narrative of a story, the start of a creative story. The characters are the riders in the train car. They enter into the train car. You start learning who the characters are, what they're like, where they come from. And as they get into the story, they go up to that first hill, and that's where the story starts to build up. You build that excitement in the story, figure out what the drama is going to be. When you reach that peak up at the top, that's when it gets more interesting. That's when the story gets exciting, because then you have your twists, then you have your turns, then you have your crazy loops going all around. And you can build your story around the roller coaster. So I watched my wife teach 5th grade, and she's got segmented subjects. You got your English, you got your math, and tiny bit of science and history at the end of the day, because their district decided just to throw that in there for fun. Well, what if you could take it and take your STEM and make it an all-day thing and integrate it with your English and math? And a roller coaster, marble roller coaster, makes it super easy to do that. So you can set up your story frames with that. The different parts of the roller coaster become the different elements of the story. Throw in your vocabulary. You get your kids to tape that up to the wall, then they can start using Post-its, highlight different parts of the story, the vocabulary. In math, obviously, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to do math. You've got your fractions, decimals, take measurements, do some conversions. You got your geometry. You got a loop. I forgot how to make a loop just now. You can figure out the diameter of the loop, calculate the circumference, find out the area, decorate it. In science, you've got the forces acting on it. Talk about the energy, the gravity, the speed, the acceleration. History was a little bit of a stretch, I know, but it's okay. Roller coasters occurred throughout history. Whatever time period, if you have to teach history, if you're in elementary, whatever time period you might be studying, maybe roller coasters existed then, so the kids can do some research on the roller coasters that existed. Or if it's a time period where roller coasters don't yet exist, then you can take that time period, learn about the people, the housing, the jobs they had, and turn that into a theme for your roller coaster. So you're studying the Civil War. Imagine if you had a Civil War era themed roller coaster, little horse riders going around, log cabins, shooting guns. Probably could get worse than that. Things like that. So that's just an opportunity to do with a pool noodle. $1, you can deliver those to your kids. Do a grab and go. Or if the kids have them, if they finish their marble roller coaster, then they have the pool noodle. They can do all sorts of stuff with it. So it's just an opportunity, just stuff you can find around your house, stuff that's inexpensive, where you can make it more applicable, get the kids off the computer, have more fun, and then they can see how it all kind of ties together, hopefully. Haven't tried this one yet, I'll be honest with you, but I'm actually thinking about trying it. I know I do the marble roller coasters already, and our students have to do a press release that goes along with their roller coaster, but I'm not an English teacher, so I don't really tie it in. I thought about foreshadowing and time travel if you want to get a creative story, because the loops work out really well. You got the present timeline as they come around. Maybe in the story, you could do some foreshadowing, kind of a preview of what's going to happen. Then you loop back around to the present time, the story continues, and then you figure out what happens. Or if you want to time travel, think about the time traveling. You go into the future, or you're coming along your timeline, travel back into the past, change the timeline, and then you've got a whole new timeline to follow. Marble roller coaster with paper is fun. Might be a little bit easier. It is a lot of tape to make it with paper too. My kids do that, and it's challenging. The pool noodles make it super easy because it's easy to do the twists and turns. I know with the paper, you got to cut them in certain ways, and then it folds around, and it gets tricky. But they are fun to do. And my kids come up with the crazy themes for their roller coasters. But I know, get money. I think I had another slide in there, but I think I forgot to put it in, so that's okay. So getting supplies, obviously supplies is always a big issue. And I just wanted to tell you about three opportunities to get money. The Harbor Freight one was a surprise to me. I know we talk about getting supplies to kids, doing these grab and goes. How do you get those supplies to the kids? How do you pay for those supplies? Sometimes the schools can pay for them. If you really want to do the STEM with the kids, sometimes you'll have to do those supplies. So I've spent a little bit of money on my supplies, and just so that I can keep my kids engaged in these projects. But Harbor Freight, I just found out, is a new one. This link is also on the slides that are in the folder. The second one, the request for a donation, this one is actually super fast. In early August, I happened to find that on the Harbor Freight website, and simple form, fill out, one page on their website to fill out. You just ask for a donation. It doesn't ask for a particular amount. They're not going to give you a lot, but it just asks you what you're going to use it for. K through 12, public education. Fill out the form. It says that it takes 6 to 8 weeks to get a response. I got a response the next day. It worked that fast. They have been super responsive. They gave me $200 in Harbor Freight gift cards, which is a good amount of money. If you need that tape, Harbor Freight sells tape. You can buy a lot of tape with $200. Sandpaper, little hand tools, things like that to get the kids going. Harbor Freight, we know, sells a lot of inexpensive stuff, and it's not the best quality, but it's $200 that they just gave me in a gift card that I haven't been able to get because I haven't been able to get to school. So soon I'll be able to spend that money. But Harbor Freight is a good source. They have the Tools for Schools program as well. I think it's a longer application process, but the second link that's on there is super fast, super quick, and super easy. The second one, the Toshiba one, this is the one that I talked about earlier for our, they do have safety goggles. Amazing stuff. And masks. You need to buy some N95 masks. There you go. Keep clean. The Toshiba, if you didn't know about this, Toshiba America Foundation offers grants for teachers as well. K through 6, they have a K through 5 category and a 6 through 12 category. I just looked at their website earlier today, and unfortunately the K through 5 deadline was October 1st, but they do have, I think, 3 different deadlines throughout the year to apply. The application process is all online. I found out about this through a friend that actually works for Toshiba, and I filled out this grant last year, and they have a lot of money to spend. I filled out a grant requesting program items for our mentoring program, like I said, to buy things to have at these STEM events, and I requested a little over $13,000 worth of items, and it all got approved. When I read their press release last year, when they announced all the winners, they gave away, I think it was about $150,000 worth of grants to schools all over the country. It's just an online process to fill out, and you can get a lot of cool stuff. And if you want to see the cool stuff that I got, I'll show you really quickly. We got a pool at our school because we do underwater robotics as well. So yes, again, I'm in my trailer, my home office. We do underwater remote operated vehicles. And so with our pool, I decided that I wanted to have little underwater scenes, dioramas, large ones. So I actually used the grant to buy 3 of these underwater drones. Best Buy actually carries them. They're pretty pricey, but it'll allow us to, and actually will work out for this virtual distance learning. I haven't tried it out yet, but it has an app that connects to your phone, and then from there I can connect that to a Google Meet and stream that so that kids can use it. And my plan for that is to have elementary, middle school kids join the Meet, and then they can control the sea perch virtually. Really, I would be driving it, and they would tell me, turn left, turn right, go explore. The Explorer Vision, yes, we looked into that one too. So I've got the underwater drones. I bought Ozo bots. I bought a full class set, 36 of them with the grant. They gave me these, I bought these Lego boards. That's why it says thank you Toshiba back there. Snap circuits. I bought several GoPros so that we can attach them to drones, attach them to the underwater ROVs. My students like to do a lot of recruiting videos, and they can use that too. Earthquake kits as well, because I wanted to do more of the STEM activities at these different STEM events. So I bought those as well. And I got those with the Toshiba grant, and they were kind enough to send me the check. They announced that I won right before we went on spring break. And then when we went on spring break, that's when all the schools shut down. So I was sad. I couldn't do anything with it. And then CTA also has a grant opportunity. Ozobots are great. And I know they have their virtual coding thing that you can do at home. And it's also small enough where you can have little bins for them. And if you wanted to check them out to students, you can check them out so that they can do the Ozobots at home. I was trying to figure out the materials for that so that they can start working on that as well. So that they can get some coding. And that's it. That's a lot of what I do at my school. Again, I'm just trying to make my way through this world just like everybody else. And one of the questions I do have on there, if you did see it, if you go up next to the chat, the Q&A, I put a question on there, STEM activities. What STEM activities have you done with your students? Because I'm always trying to learn, get more opportunities for my students as well. And again, the handouts, if you see that, has the resources, and I can actually, if you want to see all that's in there, it has a lot in there. This is, when I did StepCon last year, I shared all these same materials in there. Civil engineering has basic rules. So when my mentoring program set up competitions for the elementary and middle schools, we modified some of our rules so that they could be for the elementary kids. But in the folder, let me go back, is the STEM in a New Era is this presentation, so you can see that. All the links are in there as well. The day 1 and day 2 challenges are the ones that we did initially, the scavenger hunts and finding projects. And those are set up in Google Slides. They have the Nearpod set up, so if you have the Nearpod add-on, you can just make a copy of that and it's ready to go as is. Or you can modify it how you want to. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. That folder is there. But I thank you for attending. My class is called MESA, Math, Engineering, Science Achievement. And I do a lot of these projects with my physics students as well. So I teach physics and I teach MESA. So if you are stressed about distance learning, know that it's going to be okay. We don't need to change too much. Keep it simple. Don't add on all these extra apps and programs. It's just, it's overwhelming. I was flustered and overwhelmed and decided it's ridiculous. Let's keep it simple. Get the kids doing what they love doing, building projects. Do I have a Twitter? I do. I don't know what it is though. Yeah, I do know what it is. Mesa, I'll look it up for you. Maybe I'll post it somewhere. Put it in the chat. I don't even know. See how often I use Twitter? Rialto HS Mesa. There we go. Put the link in the chat. The link to the Google Drive folder? I can do that. So if you want the link to the chat, there it is. Thank you.